Hello and welcome. This is FightRise.
Hello, Fight Risers. Thank you for joining us for this Ask Me Anything with Rooflemonger. My name is Hot Soup, one of the event organizers on the Discord. Before we jump into it, I want to go over how this is going to work. Rooflemonger and Image Omega are going to be on this stage speaking. If you have a question for Rooflemonger, just type /ask in general chat and then hit enter. A box will pop up in Discord where you can type your question. The questions are going to go directly to Image Omega, and he'll credit you when he asks it. We are hoping this is more a conversational style AMA. For that reason, we may dive a little deeper into some of the interesting answers we get from our guest. I'm going to try my best to transcribe, in summary, the answers we hear in text form, so you can view that as well in the Ask Me Anything channel on the channels list. It's also for those who couldn't make it to this live. You're not limited to any number of questions, so feel free to keep lobbing them at us as we go. However, it should be mentioned we only scheduled an hour of Rooflemonger's time, so we do hope to get to all of your questions, but please forgive us if we do miss it. But without further ado, let me introduce your host for the night, the founder of FightRise himself, Chris Kuntz, but you know him better as Image Omega.
Perfect. Thank you so much. First, what is up, FightRise family? And again, thank you, Hot Soup. Like, Hot Soup, you were the real MVP of this FightRise family. Like, none of this would absolutely be possible without you, especially right now, as we have an incredibly special guest today. And the easiest way for me to introduce him is just to say this. Like, if you watch any fighting game content on YouTube, you've definitely seen his videos. The man whose passion for fighting games is probably maybe only rivaled by his passion for primates. And I'm, of course, talking about the legend with over 222,000 subscribers on YouTube, with over 2,000 videos in his content library, Mr. Rooflemonger himself. Absolutely grateful for you to be here tonight, and thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule to be here. So how are you doing tonight?
It was a long day, but I just put out an hour-long Steve guide today for Tekken, but I love editing. That's my favorite part of the job. Everyone loves editing, right? But yeah, doing good otherwise.
Gotcha. Yeah, so it's funny. Like, I actually do love the editing portion. I don't know if you were being facetious or
Oh,
that,
I hate it to death.
Yeah,
I hate it to death.
yeah,
But
that's
it's part of the job, so I got to do it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like, I was just actually looking at your content library, and over 2,000 videos. That's pretty impressive. And kind of, we did the math on that, and if you like took no days off, that's almost 5.5 years straight of video content. And then that to say that's like simply phenomenal. So like kudos to you. It's been an incredible journey. Like, seeing you grow. I've been a fan of yours since very early on. But yeah. So again, we're thankful for you to be here.
No days off is about right. But yeah, like I always say, as long as people are watching, if you got any either educational or entertainment value out of the videos, then I did my job. So that's how I look at it.
100%. Yeah, I think you're highly entertaining and highly informative. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get right into this first question here. And so this first question this is one of the ones that Hop Soup brought in preloaded, and it's esports in general had a bit of a crash post the height of COVID. Many feel fighting games weren't affected as much, though. And we would love to get your perspective on that.
Okay, fighting games are esports. Like, and to that point, fighting games were the first esport. We were here before everybody else.
Yep.
Like, so so fighting games are esports, but also fighting games are not esports as well. We're not tied up to a delicate ecosystem where, like, if one domino falls, the rest falls. Like, I see like the stories of like the Overwatch League, and it's like kind of hanging on by a thread, right?
Oh yeah.
But then you look at fighting games. If you're playing Street Fighter 6, right? There's always a room for two guys to go play in a room, play Street Fighter 6. End of story. Doesn't matter. And there's always room for some guy to get mad that he lost and challenge the other guy to a $20 match or something like that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That's been the concept since 1991. It's a concept in 2024 and beyond. So I even like come to XKO. See, I'm on brand. I can call it Project L. I'm on brand.
I'm glad you remember that.
Stuff, right? So I gotta stay in line on that, right? But and they got their plans too, which I'm not at liberty to discuss. But even 2XKO will not be quite. I don't want to like degrade it in this, but like it won't be as shiny as say like Valorant or Rainbow Six Siege or like the usual esport thing, right? No matter how you do the fighting game thing. Like maybe you got a guy coming out in a jersey if he's sponsored. That'll happen. We can do that, right? But you also won't get a guy fined for wearing the wrong shoes either, right?
Mm.
Because the one thing we have over every other quote unquote esport is something like the open bracket tournament. Because whoever shows up, like whoever won. Like
Yeah.
like that's the end of the story, right? And as long as you can walk your 2 feet to whatever the venue is, pay whatever the fee is, any man with two hands has a fighting chance, right? So if you're up against Daigo, hey, you're probably gonna lose, but you got a chance, right? You got a chance, and it's all on you. And that's kind of the beauty of fighting games. And that's why it's always going to endure. And maybe they'll wax and wane. Right now, we're definitely like on the upswing of things. That's for sure. We're definitely on the upswing right now. But like that's why fighting games will always endure whenever other esports rise and fall.
Oh, that's perfect. And you mentioning this, that open bracket, it's created some of those Cinderella stories. Like I wouldn't
Absolutely, yeah.
I wouldn't know as much about Kakaru if it wasn't for LCQ last year and just seeing him kind of run through that. That's phenomenal. We're getting into this next question here. This again comes from Hot Soup. Is looking at the FGC content space today versus when you started. What are the biggest differences?
It's certainly more crowded. Like I'll just flatly say that. When I started, it was simply like on multiple levels. When I started doing this professionally, quote unquote, it's just easier, both on the YouTube front and if you look at like say FGC YouTube's like a couple of acres of land, right? There was just more open land back then. Like when I started because like I started out of desperation. Like I didn't want to be YouTube famous or nothing. I was looking to pay my bills because I used to work on emergency police medical fire dispatch, and they fired all of us when they sold the company.
Gotcha.
So like, I had the YouTube channel from before. Like I made like Injustice 1 guides for fun, and under the old rules, back in the day, I was eligible to monetize, and now monetization is like 1,000 times stricter than it was back then. So that's what got me like, the kick in the butt to get going. Pay my rent, right? That's a pretty good motivator. But yeah, now like when I started, and obviously it took me a hot minute to get going, right? Like I wasn't out of the gate. Like I only finally found my footing with like Marvel Infinite, and things only started taking off come Dragon Ball Fighters. But I was doing this quote unquote like for real since like Tekken 7's launch, right?
Yeah. And I think
but like, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think it's like really interesting, just kind of looking at the landscape of when you did start. Like today, a lot of people can compare themselves to people like you, right? Like, where they have almost like a blueprint to kind of follow. Where before, I don't think that really existed for you.
No, I specifically started not even like Tekken 7 is the first fighting game I started with. I started with For Honor because I was like racking my brain for anything like what can I do, and like well, For Honor is enough like a fighting game, so like I can do that. I found some glitches that broke the meta and all that kind of stuff. So that worked out, right? I got some decent clicks on some of those videos, but yeah, like a lot of the established channels today didn't exist when I started. Like look at Justin. You talk about COVID, right? Justin's channel's bigger than mine is. And he started because of COVID, because like can't rely on tournament and sponsors when COVID was happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of like the iPhone's another one. A lot of established channels now did not exist when I started. And that's why I think it's unfortunately, not to say there's no chance, but unfortunately, it is harder now to get off the ground if you're looking to start a YouTube channel. Simply because there's more people. The more people are, it's harder for any one individual to kind of shine bright and break through. Not to say you can't do it, because you absolutely can, but it is more difficult.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, this will actually be great, kind of a lead into the next question, because because you're talking about Justin and Diaphone, and I think a lot of people think that in order for them to really showcase fighting games, they need to be good at it. So for anyone looking to improve, and that's not necessarily an opinion of mine for sure that I would back, but I want to kind of throw that out there because I've heard that from people. But for anyone looking to improve at fighting games, in your experience, what aspect do you think is the most overlooked in their journey?
As like improving in fighting games in general, you mean?
Yes.
Then the number one thing I would say is just consistency. Like so many people, they focus on like, okay, I need the maximum damage combo. They'll burn 10 hours getting one more damage in a combo, or 10 hours trying to find the sickest setup. And like the thing that matters more is just your pure base fundamentals. Like, don't like it's nice to have the fancy combos, nice to have the fancy setups, don't get me wrong, right? But your pure base fundamentals and just solid play. Like, I'm not saying you have to grind 10 hours a day or anything, because you most certainly don't. But just focus on what you know you're good at and just keep at it, and you will absolutely find success. Like, just as a case example, early days of Dragon Ball Fighters. Like, everyone's talking about Goichi, Sonic Fox, all that kind of stuff, but the guy who put up the most results was Kazunoko. And he did it with completely substandard bad combos. He didn't bother labbing combos at all. He did like the most basic B&Bs, and he was the one who won almost every tournament. Because his fundamentals were there when everyone else was focusing on fancy stuff, right?
Yeah. I was actually just watching a video of his Ed play today in Street Fighter 6, and nothing he did seems like overly flashy, but he just did everything at the perfect time. Just perfect timing,
Exactly.
perfect spacing.
Hardest thing about fighting games isn't, the button pressing or like whatever. It's just staying calm under fire. And like when you can just win off pure fundamentals, that's exactly what that is, right? That's why someone like Kaz will always be good. He doesn't need most optimal combos or setups or whatever, because you can just play good. Like, that's it, right? Like, it's almost like Street Fighter 2 days, or everything before Street Fighter 4, really, when we didn't have like the internet to teach us everything and we didn't know all the tech. We just played by feel. And if you can play by feel decently, then that's kind of all you really need.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect answer, and I think that's a good way for people to kind of keep it fun for themselves. So going into this next question, we have a question from Lucky the God, and he asks, minus Hakan, since we all know Roofle wants him, what are Rooflemonger's top 5 to 10 DLC wish list for Season 2 of Street Fighter 6?
Well, there's ones where like I expect them to be DLC, even though I won't necessarily play them. Like Sakura, I feel like if not Season 2, then Season 3. Like, she's just too much of a mainstay, right? Like, I feel that's gonna happen. Other characters, I would love to see how Makoto works in a game with Drive Rush.
Yeah, a
Because
lot of people asking for her.
yeah, like either Drive Rush Drab or Drive Rush Grab, and you just guess. And if Grab works anything like it should, right, then that's gonna be nasty. Personally, I don't ever expect to see Abigail again because people are cowards and fear him. But that means I would like to see Hugo come back at some point.
Yeah.
Other characters I think would be like mechanic. Like, I would never play him, but I think Rolento would be mechanically very interesting in Street Fighter 6. Like, you couldn't get me to touch him with a 10-foot pole, but I think he would work really cool in the game. What else? Like, Hakon's the one I've been putting my energy into because I'm trying to like manifest him. Like, that's my cross to bear at the moment. But besides that, obviously we got new characters. I know a lot of people want to see Sean and stuff. I think Sean could work if you massively revamp him. Like, don't make him just like make him the Shoto without a fireball, right? Like, he has the Shoryu, he has like his version of Tatsu, but like expand on the tackle and grab. Like, make him more like a MMA kind of character. Like, that'd be an interesting way to go about it. Like, I don't it remains to be seen if it could be pulled off, but it's an option at least. G, I would love to see G return, especially if only for the fact Street Fighter 5 they made him seem like he's a big deal, and then they went on to do exactly nothing with him and never mentioned him again in Street Fighter 6. Like, he's the boss of Street Fighter 5 officially. Like, they kicked Nikali out of the position when they did Arcade Edition, and they said G is officially the boss of this game. And like, I don't know, like, I'm a lore nut too, right? So it drives me nuts that they gave him like an official position and they did exactly nothing with it, right? But mechanically as well, G's really, really cool. He'd be interesting. Poison, I'd like to see. I would like to see like a Street Fighter 4 version of Poison, like Shoto Light again. I found her more fun in Street Fighter 4 than I did in 5. Like, versus her being like Dalsum Light. But I don't know, that's me. I just like their Fireball game. It was very interesting. Like, with Aeolus Edge, like, either you're going for the real fireballs or you're doing like fake fireballs to force to jump, that kind of stuff. I thought that was cool.
No, that's fun. I mean, well, I guess unless you play against DJ or something like that, but you get mixed up a little bit.
True enough. But I don't know. Like, I feel if she does come back, she'll just get reinvented again, be like a third different thing we've never seen before. But who knows? Like, characters I don't want to see back. I never want to see Ibuki ever again. And thankfully, because Kimberly's there, I doubt she'll be there.
Yep.
But on the flip, Zeku could be cool, but also Kimberly's there, so I don't think they'll do Zeku. So I don't know.
Yeah. It's
But
interesting
basically, I'm just hoping for like one more proper full grappler at some point. I would like it to be Hakan, but Hugo would be cool too. Um, and I'm kind of chill with whatever they want to do. Like if they want to do Viper again too, like I think she's popular enough that there's money to be made there. But yeah, I'm kind of just grooving on what they are willing to put out at this point. Other than Trump was trying to force a con into existence, I'm in wait and see mode, I guess. Like Makoto, I think is a lock. She'll happen as well, and I'm looking forward to how she play. Just like with her weird play style, right? Especially because like her start stop, like she walks slower than a turtle, then drive rush go carry across the screen or something. Like that'd be cool, but I don't know. At this point, yeah, I just want another grappler, and just kind of wait and see on everyone else.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think at this point they've been doing a lot of things right, so we have a lot of faith in them. And even just seeing that Akuma teaser, like that was cool. I was like, okay,
It was really, really good. Like I'm not an Akuma player, but I'm like I see him, like wow, he looks sick.
Yeah, just like little things like that to get you excited, right? Like even if maybe you don't vibe with a goofier character, like I think just them being in the game, it just kind of breathes a different type of life into the game. So yeah, like you said, I'm on board. I just want to see what they're going to do next.
Actually, I do have one thing for a character that's not been in proper Street Fighter before. Maki. I think Maki, because she's in CVS too, right? I think Maki would be an interesting fit in the Street Fighter 6. I don't think they'll ever do it, but it'd be an interesting go.
Okay, very cool. Well, I'm going to go into this next question here because this one comes from Twitter. This is from Facsimilitude, and it said, they said terms like the arcade era and 09ers often crop up in discussion of fighting game history. As a genre veteran, what would you call the current era we are in, and what are the key points thus far that define it?
If anything, I would, because like we had the golden age, right? Like the golden age was 91, 92, 93, 94. Like that happened. Now, a lot of people who are younger that weren't around those days, they don't understand how total fighting games were. Fighting games were the most popular genre of video game on Earth back in the early 90s. And if you weren't alive to experience it, it's hard to tell you how prevalent. Like every second issue of EGM was either Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat. Straight up. But right now, if we called it anything, I would call this era the Renaissance. Like we're not quite the golden age. We'll never hit those highs ever again, I don't think. Unless like Street Fighter overtakes Fortnite somehow. But this is the Enlightenment, like we're getting back. Our feet are firmly on the ground again in a big way.
Okay. Yeah, that's perfect. All right. Well, this next question comes from Sonic Wave 25, and he asks. Well, first he says, "Good evening," and then he says, "What are some of the ways you juggle content between numerous games?" He said, "Your early guides on Street Fighter 6 were really helpful, and I imagine at times it can be tough to stay consistent."
That is the biggest thing in my life, dude. That's the absolute biggest thing in my life. Very early on, I made a decision because, like, I was making guides, right? And I finally started making a very little amount of money in Marvel Infinite. But I'm like, okay, guides. If I do nothing but guides eventually run out. Like, I'll say everything there is to say, basically, right? So that's when I'm like, okay, let's do news as well. So news is a big part of what I do, right? Like I'd say a very significant chunk. Like if anything, the biggest percentage of my views come from news coverage, right? But besides that, there's not news every day. Like part of the reason I cover so many games is just so there's something always on the table, right?
Gotcha.
And the way I make guides these days, like the Steve guide I just posted a couple hours ago was like over an hour long. Like I can't pump those out every day either, right? So I look at it as like, I try to do as many guides as I can. Obviously, when there's a patch or launch, that takes priority over everything else, in my opinion, at least for me. News when I can, and then every now and then I'll make silly videos. Like, well, not like silly from a comedy perspective necessarily, but like I'll do something different. Maybe I'll do a top 10 list. Maybe I'll talk about like a video game character. Maybe I'll talk about fighting game lore. Like Virtua Fighter is very much in the news again, right? So I remember last year for April Fools, I made a video about like the only storyline that matters in Virtua Fighter, which is the Satan Shark. It's the only memorable bit of lore that game has. And not too long ago, I remember it was like sparked by a decision or rather a discussion on Twitter. And that prompted me to make a video just like fighting game sumo wrestlers, which was a stealth way to talk about like specifically Virtua Fighter, like how Taka Arashi is one of the most fucked up characters. Apologies for the language of like all of fighting game history, because like he doesn't play the same game everyone else does, you know. So whenever there's news, like news in a vacuum always takes priority, and then I'm usually working on some guide, some way, shape, or form. Like say Street Fighter 6 right now, I'm kind of not bothering on the guides on like Akuma I will, but because I know in a couple months there'll be season 2 patch, right? And that's almost certainly going to invalidate any guide I make, because I'm sure the changes are going to be monstrous and massive. So I'll make a lot of guides after then, but before then, not so much. But for now, I focus on news. Tekken is, the hot new deal, so some Tekken guides. I got some kind of one-off video ideas, either be lore or just general game concepts. Basically, at least for me, I'm kind of open to do everything, like very mercenary about it, because I'm in the position where, YouTube is my primary source of income, right? So it pays my rent, and I always look at it like I always got to keep working, I always got to keep paying the rent. So if I don't got anything to make for today, what can I make for today? And sometimes it's not always a banger video, but I'm always looking for new content, some way, some form, somehow.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I appreciate that variety that you bring to the table. I mean, anytime that I want to dabble into, let's say, like a new fighter, I actually go to your channel first and kind of start looking for what you had to say about it, especially because, as you're kind of getting your feet wet, like DNF Duel was a great example. Like you started going through like who should you pick as your main, and that kind of like opened my eyes up to a lot of things. So yeah, I love the variety.
Yeah, those videos, those are like definitely the signature video, I would say. Now that my channel's a bit bigger, usually, not always, it's Bandai Namco, but usually I get a copy like, a week early or something, and I get it explicitly just so I can make that video. Like, let's go through the entire cast, and like in more than just a surface way, like Ryu does the hurricane kick and fireball.
Sure.
Next clip, right? Like the Street Fighter 6 one I was particularly proud of, because like almost every character was like a mini guide in and of itself,
Yeah.
But yeah, like, so those are the same, those ones pay the bills. I'll tell you that right now. Like, I got like 3 of those videos at like almost 1 million views each, and those kind of subsidize everything else I do.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, even though like, Tekken 8, maybe you didn't have that necessarily early, but your guide on that was amazing. And I looked at all those like little characters, well, the characters I was interested in, and it was like a little mini guide, and kind of like gave me more ideas of how to play them or who I should choose. So that was a great one. And that kind of leads me into this one question I do want to ask you, as far as, because you've had quite the storied career, right? From your days as the evil Canadian, and what you said as far as making injustice videos, and the oldest video on your channel is Dead or Alive 5. So I thought that was really interesting. So today, I would put you up there as everybody considers you an authority on fighting games. So as far as your storied career goes, what are some of the highlights? And what are some of the low points that you've crossed during your creator journey?
For highlights, I would probably specifically highlight last year. Last year, I was invited to Capcom, NetherRealm Studios, and Riot headquarters, and like that was really cool, right? Like the way I look at it, like I don't consider myself anything. I consider myself some guy. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I live in a small rural town. Directly across the street from me is a bar. Behind the bar is where the meth heads are. Like when I walk the dog, I'm just some guy. I ain't nobody famous, right?
Gotcha.
So being able to
video games over there.
Sorry?
They're not playing video games over there at that bar.
No, they're playing Let's Fight with baseball bats out in the street. So
oh my gosh. Different fighting games.
Hey, that's small town living, baby. You gotta love it. But yeah, so that was like finally like I made it moment, right? It's obviously a lot, like finally getting 100,000 subscribers on the channel and get the YouTube plaque and all. That was really cool. But like being able to be flown in on their dollar, I didn't pay for it, their dollar, right, to all like the company headquarters, that was really, really cool. Yeah. Like I remember the preview event for Mortal Kombat 1 before it launched, right? And they just put me in front of a TV, and like I'm doing what they allowed me to check, because we have rules and all that kind of stuff, right? And then just Ed Boon walks by and he's like, "Hey, what's up?" And he's like, "So what do you think?" And it's like, "Oh shit, it's Ed Boon." Like,
mm-hmm.
like really that cool. To me, like small town dude, like that's a big deal. Like that's really cool, right? Like, so like, the first time I could pay my rent with a paycheck from YouTube, that was really cool too, because I was struggling at the time. So that was really nice. Like there's a lot of highlights, like lowlights. A lot of lowlights aren't necessarily even on the YouTube front. There's times where like I get channel copyright strike, like the bad kind.
Yeah.
And like then I'm stressing, right? Because like if someone wants to like put a false copyright strike while you already have a false like a real copyright strike on, that can be bad news bears. I don't know, like there's dumb things like you say stupid stuff on Twitter and everyone roasts you for it. Like that's gonna happen. Like that's just life. Like I don't know, like the lowlights I would say are not many really. Like I can't think of anything like I would like regret so much like, oh, I wish I could like change time and take it back. There's videos I made like that were not popular, like when I post my opinion, like that sucks at the time, but then you move on, right?
Sure. Yeah. You grow from it.
Yeah, or even for me, I didn't grow from nothing. Like I'm just like, well, fuck these guys. Like I don't care about your opinion. Screw you.
Gotcha.
And but I don't know. Like I would say obviously like my job's not as hard as like Hassan Piker's or whatever. Whatever drama that was, right? But like it's rough sometimes. Like there's days like where I only live off Red Bull. It's like making like the hour-long guide, like the Tekken guide, the starter, or choose a main. That was like what 3.5 hours long.
Yeah,
like I made that in 2 days. I made that in 2 days. I was up for like 40 consecutive hours just making that video.
Oh my gosh.
So like those days suck, right? Like I don't like those days, but like I got to do it. And like I look at it like one of the things: if I don't do it, either it's not going to get done, or someone's just going to do it worse. Like that's the way I look at it, right? So. So those days, like those are the lowlights, the days where I can't sleep. I guess I would say the big ones, right? But other than that, like I like once again, I'm about to swear. I give a shit about fighting games. I've been here. Like I've not even been here since '91. I was here since '89 because I remember playing Street Fighter 1 in the bowling alley in 1989, and I'm like, this game sucks. And then 1991 rolls around, and Street Fighter 2. I think it was like November, December 1991, I played Street Fighter 2 for the first time. Then like, wow, this game's amazing, and like changed my life, right?
Yeah.
It's a good thing I played 2 and didn't just have the memory of Street Fighter 1. But yeah, like I've been on the ride the whole time. Like I love these games, even in the quote unquote dark ages, of like the early 2000s. I was playing everything there was to play. Like I love this genre, and like I'm here for the long ride. Basically, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. That's incredible, and I think it's really cool that you remember the exact like months with some of that too, because like I remember as a kid, I remember where I played Street Fighter 2, but like if anything happens with what we're building today, I kind of like those things that you talked about as far as some of your highlights. Like there's probably a couple of things that me and Hatsu talk about with FightRise, and one is we hope one day to kind of like bring a fighter up and be able to kind of sponsor them and bring them up to like a bigger event, because we want to just try to give back to the community as much as possible. And the other thing that I think would be cool is if like all of us got together and was part of something, whether that's just a meetup or an event like you're talking about. I always think that stuff's really cool. But as far as all your success, I think this is a good segue for this next question here, because this comes from Anonymous Mouse on Reddit. And he says, at what number of subscribers do you think is considered success in the FGC space?
That's a great question, because like we're a niche industry, right? Like I got like 200 some thousand subscribers, and I'm not pat myself on the back, but I'm one of the bigger channels in the FGC, right? And then you look at like say COD, like a 200,000 channel and COD be like you're like lower mid tier, like. So like legitimately, if you can get over even like 5K subscribers in fighting games only, like you're getting your name out there in some way, some form. That's what I would say. Like, for me, my first real big bump was Marvel Infinite. And I think before Marvel Infinite, I had like 1,500 subscribers. And then after say the first month of Marvel Infinite, I had like 4,000. And then I'm like, wow, okay, things are taking off, like, but there's no number where like anything's guaranteed, right? Like YouTube is such a well, if you do it like me, anyways. If you're smarter, you don't do it like me. But if you do it like me, YouTube's like you look at the numbers every day, right? And one bad day is like the sky's falling.
Yeah.
I could have 200,000 subscribers, and I look at one bad day, I'm like, my channel's dead. You know, like, so don't do it like me. Don't look at the numbers every day. But
I think it's tough when it feeds it to you, right? It's like right there in your face, like, hey, this video didn't do as great as your last video.
oh well, it gamifies everything. If it's your number one video of your last 10, there's fireworks and explosions. And if it's like anything else, you see a big fat red arrow pointing down.
Yeah.
You know, like it causes bad brain feels. But yeah, there's no magic number. I would say definitely after I hit like 10,000 subscribers, that's the point. I'm like, okay, things are taking off. Like things are like getting real here, right? And I think that's much the case for anyone. If you can hit, if you can get even over 5K, but at 10K especially, like the wheels are definitely starting to turn. Like it's not an accident, you know?
Yeah. And would you say at that point, like you're pretty much going to experience, or I guess if you are consistent, experience exponential growth?
Exponential growth, I find, comes in two forms. Both like just the randomness of the YouTube algorithm. Who knows, right?
Sure.
Like my first video to get 100,000 views was in the Marvel Infinite Days, and it was just a random video I put together because like I couldn't finish like the Doctor Strange combo guide on time. Like I'm like, okay, it'll be another day or something. So I just randomly like slapped together, here's a bunch of funny Hulk noises. And boom, got 100K in like a week.
Yeah.
So the randomness of YouTube definitely can play a factor, right?
Sure.
But besides that, now I'm kind of losing my train of thought here. Repeat the question now that I kind of took that aside. Sorry about that.
Well, I was just saying at that point, once you hit 10,000, do you feel like that was
yes.
you would reach exponential growth?
Here's the thing. So growth as far as fighting games go is I would call it a cycle. There's no official term. I will call it a cycle, right? Like if you're making videos, say Tekken 8, because Tekken 8's only like a month and change old, right? If you're making Tekken 8 videos in the first month of Tekken 8, you will see more clicks, subs, all that kind of stuff, likes, than you will on year 3 of Tekken 8, right? That's just how it is. So if you're looking for exponential growth, what you need to do is you either need to hit an all-new game launch as hard as you can, or a patch as hard as you can, or a DLC character. Like when people are talking about a fighting game outside of fighting games, like that's when the cycle is. Or if they're, let's say, a controversy, right? Hit the controversy. But if you're doing things just purely in a vacuum, unless you get lucky with the algorithm, or unless your content is like super omega level banger, like it certainly behooves you to kind of follow, I don't want to say like the trend, but like follow where you know the peaks of interest are going to be. Sure. Like, are people going to talk more about fighting games after Evo? Yes. So if you're making videos, make videos about Evo or just about fighting games in that Evo time frame, because interest is at a higher level than normal, right? Yeah, much the same after a big tournament or a DLC character or a patch or even a new release. Like if you're looking to grow your channel, say when 2XKO comes out, that'd be a really good one to hit really hard and as hard as you possibly could, right? Because it's a new game, hungry audience. They're looking to get anything. Like even the most, like, to put anyone down or anything, but like, you know, like the most dirt worst content will get clicks in a launch window time, right? So you gotta assess the times where like you're looking for when you think interest will peak past a normal amount, and that's when you gotta hit the hammer.
That's great advice. And with 2XKO on the horizon, so to speak, you know, hopefully 2025. That's perfect. Okay. Well,
yeah,
for this,
I have many people who ask me in DMs and stuff. They look for YouTube advice, right? And this is basically what I tell them. Like, you know, specifically 2XKO. Like before then, it'll be City of the Wolves, I guess, right? Like several channels I know who are smaller, and they're not looking necessarily to grow big or anything, right? That they're just doing it because for fun. I say that cover Virtua Fighter, and the last week, Virtua Fighter awareness has peaked in a very major way, and now they're getting views that they normally don't get, right? Yeah. So whenever like a topic or like say out of the blue, I don't know, like say tomorrow there's a Street Fighter 6 tournament, And out of nowhere, like no one expected it, out of nowhere, Lily wins, and in a dominating way. The next day, maybe make a video about Lily. You'll definitely get a surge of interest you wouldn't otherwise get, right? So sometimes you got to call your shots, right? But like this is why I'll stay up at 3 a.m. on like Eastern Standard Time waiting for like a Japan event, because I think there might be something. Because if there is, then I'll be the first one to get it, and then I'll have like whatever views on my channel, and as it like slowly worms its way through, general gaming community, then I'll already have the video up. It'll already be in the algorithm, and then it feeds into it. Like you got to think like a hunter sometimes, I guess. I don't know. Like calling your shot is a big deal on YouTube and succeeding in general.
Yeah. For anyone that's an aspiring content creator out there, I think that's absolutely. I mean, obviously, you've done it and you've proven the formula works, and just those ideas of working through those trends. So that's amazing advice. So for this next question here, I know that we maybe covered this a little bit, but I want to make sure that we ask these questions that are coming to us. So this is from Jaywalker2 on Twitter. He's also Duoza on our FightRise community here. And he's asking, if you're wanting to get to master or compete at the master level, what are your suggestions for a routine labbing practice?
Well, for that, I guess kind of feeding back to what we talked about earlier, specifically for because master is different than like 2000 MR, right? They're like, well, technically master, but they're two very different goals, right? Yep. Just to hit master specifically, consistency once again. Like if you're labbing, if you're just looking to hit master, like don't worry about the super advanced corner double cross up setup or like the if you got the combo, right? I'm just picking numbers out of the air, but if you have a combo that does 300 damage and you get 100% of the time, and if you have a combo that does 350 damage, but you drop it half the time, forget the one you drop half the time, Yep. Like, yes, it's more damage, but if there's a risk of dropping it and you're looking to achieve a certain rank, consistency is absolutely the number one thing above all. Like, if you're looking to train with that in mind, focus on building the muscle memory on things you can't drop. Like things that once you have it in your muscle memory, you can do it blindfolded, right? Like I actually used to do that where I would just drill combos. Like I put on like my 80s music playlist and I would just drill the same like 5 combos for like 2 hours straight until like the muscle memory's in and I could do it completely blindfolded. And I'm not worried about doing the hard, cool looking combo that does 10% more damage that I might drop, because what's going to happen is, especially if you're looking to hit a certain goal, a certain rank, a certain achievement, your stress levels are going to build higher because you're looking to achieve. And the higher your stress, if you have a 10% chance to drop a combo, that means when you're stressed out, it's going to start becoming 20%, 30%. The things that you don't sweat normally will get expounded upon in a big way. So focus on the stuff you can't drop, the stuff you can't miss, the surefire tactics, right? Like consistency will get you so much further than all the edge case stuff in the world.
Yeah. I think at the competitive level, they refer to those as tournament combos, and not because they win tournaments, but because they're like the default combos that you can rely on as far as muscle memory goes.
Exactly. Like once again, when I talk about like Kazunoko and Dragon Ball FighterZ, and you talk about him playing Ed in Street Fighter 6. Kaz is a tournament winner, and he doesn't do it the fanciest combos. He does it with what works, right?
Yeah, cool. All right, well, this one comes from Ham Jam. He is a resident hero here for us here in the FightRise community, because he's actually like Street Fighter 6 was I think his very first or one of his first fighting games, and he's made that journey from rookie to master. So it's been so cool to watch him kind of grow. But he asks you this. He says, "Can you share a little overview of your history with fighting games, and what game or games did you start with, and what keeps you coming back to the genre?"
Well, like I said, I actually did play the original Street Fighter back in '89. I thought that game sucked, but back in '91, like specifically, like Street Fighter 2, the cast was a big deal, right? The cast was cool, colorful. Like I saw Blanca for the first time. He's like a weird monster man. Like I was really drawn to him early on, and obviously Mortal Kombat 1 wasn't too much long after the fact. Later '92, I believe. But like for me, I grew up on the martial arts movies, right? Like Enter the Dragon and Bloodsport specifically are two big ones. And like Bloodsport, even Mortal Kombat 1, Johnny was like a recolor of Jean-Claude, and Bloodsport is Frank Dukes, right? He just has a red sash instead of a yellow sash. So like I was already pre-programmed to like the martial art kick punch stuff, right? And then Like specifically growing up in the arcade culture, I was very lucky. The arcade was about, I don't know, like walk across the street, I don't know, like a 5-minute walk from school after school's done, right?
Yeah. Very
So I would
strategic of
go,
them.
yeah, I would go, and then we'd play, and I very early on actually fixated on E-Honda in Street Fighter 2, because you just hit the buttons and you get the move, right?
Yeah.
And like in the very early, like I didn't know how to do a fireball, like I could barely do a charge move. Chun-Li was much the same, but early 90s, like if you weren't around, you don't understand how it was back then. But playing a girl character when you were young in the early 90s, it was a thing that you tried to avoid.
Yep.
We got better about that. Okay, we got better. We learned. We evolved. But back then, it was an issue. Like you might be looking for a fight, right? But yeah, just and like the noise is so like you gotta understand too. Like Street Fighter 2 especially looked so good compared to like a lot of other arcade games at the time.
Yeah, I think it still
And
holds
like
up.
that's yeah, and like then Mortal Kombat came out. Like if you only ever played like the home versions of Mortal Kombat 1, it's hard to compare like because the arcade version looks so like all the games. If you ever played like the Super Nintendo version or whatever, the arcade versions look so much better. Like it was a real treat. Like, I remember when Virtua Fighter came out, right? And I was like fucking mind blowing. Like holy, like 3D characters and like not like the crappy way we've seen on TV. Like it looked really really good. So like the presentation was a big part of it. Obviously, like I was growing up and a lot of people my age growing up to accept like martial arts culture and all that kind of stuff. And like I've just kind of stuck with it. Like I've always been around doing it. Like I've always found my reasons to obsess. Like even in the quote unquote dark ages, like there was still Soul Calibur, there was still Mortal Kombat happening, right? Maybe not the best Mortal Kombat games at the time, but Deception was all right. But yeah, just it was one of those deals where like I got on the train and I never left. Like, and I feel very blessed in that way. Like, how many people can truly say they found something they loved as a kid, and then, like, I'm 40 now. Like, I never stopped. Like, how many people can get to say that? They found something so early on in their life, and they never stopped ever.
No, you're absolutely right. And it's interesting because I did have this idea that I wanted to ask you about because like as you listen to YouTube and all these different social media gurus out there, they'll tell you to trade like money for happiness. Meaning like if you're working some corporate job that you hate and you're making like $80,000 a year, but you like instead you can make maybe $65,000 a year talking about the Smurfs, doing some sort of content creation. They always say that you should absolutely do that, and as far as I see it, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree, that you are absolutely pursuing your passion. So do you agree? Do you like agree with that sentiment? That people should try to maybe trade money for happiness in that case. Or do you feel like your passion has become like a different type of hamster wheel, one where like if you get off, everything collapses?
Well, it certainly is a job, right? Like I have so many sleepless nights. I have to check so many emails. Like it certainly became a job, but like I still care, right? And one of the advice I give everyone is if you're looking to make it on YouTube specifically, make the kind of video that you yourself would want to watch, because that's exactly what I do. Like I like the long-winded talky videos. I'm a big fan of that. That's why I do that. Like I like the news. I like the updates. Like, a lot of people, and like this is in no way throwing anyone under the bus, right? But a lot of channels that do like watch me play the game, and that's great. Yeah. But like, I don't watch those videos, so I don't make that kind of video. Like, I might make that video once in a blue moon, specifically if like I know there's nothing else that day happening. So I'll just fill in a video to make the algorithm happy, But make the kind of video you want to watch is the biggest advice I can give. Because if you don't, and I'm not going to name names, but I've guided many people over the years on YouTube, and some have had some decent amount of success, like 10K plus subscribers, right? And they eventually fall off because I tell them something like I'll tell people exactly what works, because there's definitely a formula. It's not necessarily guaranteed, but it's what works, right? And these people, they made what works instead of what they want to make, and eventually they got burnt out because they had no fun doing it. Like they achieved the positive brain chemicals of I got this many subscribers, this many views, but I have exactly no fun making this kind of video.
Yeah.
And if you succeed that way, even if you temporarily succeed, you're absolutely destined for failure long term. So make what you want to watch. That's my biggest advice I can always give. And like maybe I succeeded in spite of the algorithm and all that kind of stuff, right? Because there's a lot of fighting game channels. I'm kind of the only one that does it the way I do it, at least on the scale that I do it, which, you know, I consider myself very blessed and very lucky to be so, right? But if you don't like making content where like you feel good about it at the end of it, even if you temporarily succeed short term, you will fail long term, 100%.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. Just the whole idea of maybe like enjoying the process more than trying to find that result. So that's a phenomenal answer.
Like I make a lot of videos, well, not a lot, but like there'll be videos I make where like I know this video, like in a time to money perspective, is a complete failure, right?
Gotcha.
But I make it because I want to make it.
Okay. Well, perfect.
Like not so long ago, well, I guess it's a while ago, some months now, I made a video about Hakan, just to talk about how cool Hakan is. And I think actually later on it re-entered the algorithm and did good over time. But when I launched it was a complete bomb the first week, right? But I was like, I want to make this video. I got it off my chest. I'm happy about it.
Gotcha. You know, actually, Hot actually was asking a question just like that. So maybe that's your answer. He said, "Is there a memorable video that you've created that you thought would blow up but didn't really hit?"
There's certainly videos that I've like underperformed that I thought would do better, and there's definitely a lot of videos I'm like, why on earth did this do okay? Like, there's one video specifically. Hang on a second here. I'm gonna open my YouTube tab. You can search by popular videos, right? So, or it's near the top. There you go. This was a video I made. Dragon Ball Fighter Season 3 UI Goku came out, right?
Okay.
And UI Goku, in case you're unaware, he has a unique trait. Like if you just walk forward, he deflects weak projectiles because you know Ultra Instinct, right?
Yep.
And like, okay, I can't make a long form video today, so I'm gonna literally like crap a quick video out to make the algorithm happy, and we'll talk about that. And that video from start to finish, and including editing and upload, couldn't have been more than half an hour, right?
Yep. Okay.
And as it stands, that video has 350,000 views.
Jeez.
Like literally half an hour of effort. And like, don't get me wrong, you know, that video made a couple bucks, right? So that's good. But I resent that video because like I think of the videos like takes days to make, right?
Yeah.
Or sometimes weeks. And I literally crap that out in half an hour, and YouTube's giving me the exact wrong, you know, carrot and stick here.
Yeah.
Because I wildly succeeded here where the other videos I poured my heart and soul into did nothing, you know? So yeah, that's gonna happen. Sometimes your low effort videos will be the most rewarded. Sometimes the one you put your soul into will not. There's definitely videos where like I'm a little resentful that they didn't do well. Like I thought they would do well and they didn't. I remember one covering like the Street Fighter comic, the old Malibu comic from like '94.
Oh wow.
I'm like, hey, this is a good video. I'm like, hey, no, maybe it's not like my best video or anything, but like I'm pretty happy with it. And then it just got like 6,000 views and died.
Oh man.
And then like that kind of like bummed me out for the whole week.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then
Malibu
randomly,
comics.
like,
I was gonna say they didn't really. I was gonna say Malibu comics. They didn't really last very long, or are they still around? I just don't know.
oh no, they're long dead. They're long dead.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And like the Street Fighter comic only went like 4 issues. Like it didn't even finish. But it's very weird for what it was. So I thought it'd be a good story to tell, right? So like that video, that one specifically. There's been so many over the years, but like that one specifically bummed me out. But you know, tomorrow is another day.
Gotcha. Okay, well, I'm going to ask you this next question from Japnu. He says, do you think Street Fighter 6 will have a top-tier grappler? And if so, who do you think that could be?
That's a very good question. So as it stands, it won't happen on purpose, is what I'll say. They won't design it that way. But we might like accidentally walk backwards and fall into it. And if that ever happens, like barring DLC, like of the two choices, I guess it would have to be Zangief. Here's the thing. I'm going to take one drink of water because I'm going to rant here for a second.
Okay, no worries.
Here's the thing. People say you can't have a top tier grappler because it kills the game, right? No one wants the game with a top tier grappler. And to that I say bullshit, because we've already had it. And let me tell you, the top tier grappler was not the complained about character. You remember this small indie title called Ultra Street Fighter 4?
Yep. Very indie title.
Zangief was top tier in that game, indisputably.
Especially in
And
Snake
who
Eyes
did everyone
again.
complain about? They complained about Rolento and Elena, right? Zangief wasn't even in the discussion, despite the fact he was almost certainly a top 5 character, right? So, like, and it happens all the time. Like, season 3 of, or was it 3 or 3.5? I can't remember which, but season 3 of Street Fighter 5, and everyone's crying about Abigail. Abigail's killing the game, right? And
Yep.
who's winning every tournament? Cammy and Rashid.
Yeah.
Every tournament goes by, Cammy or Rashid are winning. Maybe if we're lucky, get one Abigail in top 8 or top 16. And yet Abigail is talked about like he's cancer killing the game, right? People overhype this stuff all the time. A top-tiered grappler is not the end of the world. Because you know why? Because we got the stats to prove in Street Fighter 6. In a low level, Zangief has something like a 75% win rate in Street Fighter 5. Or sorry, Street Fighter 6.
Gotcha.
In like
Yeah, I
the
didn't know
lower
that.
ranks. And you know what? And the lower ranks make up the overwhelming majority of the player base.
Mm-hmm.
So if Zangief's not killing the game there, then he sure as shit isn't killing the game at a high level, you know?
Yeah.
So that's one of those things people talk about all the time, but it's completely false. Having a top tier grappler does not hurt the game. And the excuse to keep grapplers low tier because of like that completely false and wrong fear is just an argument I'm extra tired of. But once again, the developers agree with it to a degree these days, right? So I think at some point we'll get a higher tier grappler. But once again, it'll be by accident. It'll be something they didn't anticipate.
Gotcha. Yeah, from our little events that we hold, some of our players that have come up to the ranks, watching them play like each other at lower ranks, and they're watching their Zangief like mirror matches and stuff like that. Those have been like the most exciting matches for our events. Like I love watching them.
Yeah. Like Zangief is consistently one of the most hyped characters in like Street Fighter as a franchise throughout every game, right? And no one ever wants to bring that up either. Like after the big tournament, going into Capcom Cup, the person I kept hearing about a lot, like more than almost everyone else, was Snake Eyes.
Yeah,
because he was playing Zangief, and it was more exciting for people. Like they talk about grapplers being bad, but grapplers consistently hold the imagination of the casual audience in a way normal characters do not. So this literally just like assassination campaign against an archetype at this point. That's what I'll say.
All right. Well, I definitely think that grapplers don't kill the genre. I enjoy all the different archetypes, and I like playing against a good Zangief. So even though they'll make my day miserable because I'm guessing wrong, but man, a
grappler will make you feel bad. Like they'll
Yeah.
make you feel stupid in a way another character can't. I'll be the first to agree to that, right? But in the end, it was that's on you. You made the wrong call.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Well, this next question comes from Romez Guide. He says, what's the best way to get better at fighting games with the least amount of time that you have due to restraints? Maybe if consistency isn't there for them.
The best way to get good with a little amount of time is just play the game. Like, don't force yourself into hours of training mode. Don't force yourself into hours of like theoretical stuff. Just play the game. That is the best way to get good in a limited amount of time.
Cool.
Straight up. That's the only answer I can possibly give.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, I think there's a great quality of making your learning into play. So very cool. Mechanical Grape. He's actually our local stat wizard. He kind of hooks us up with cool stats on our streams. He says, is there a lesser known older fighting game that you would like to see get a modernized sequel? And or what would be a pie in the sky dream fighting game for you?
All right. Well, older fighting game that would go to a sequel. I would say Virtua Fighter. I'm the one who always flies the flag about that. And if you've been following the news, it's not officially announced, but it looks like it's very much a go at this point, right?
Yep.
And I will be absolutely fucking unbearable about that. I'm just gonna warn everyone about that right now, because like I am the only person with like an audience of any size that like is like died in the Wolf VF guy, and I take it as like a divine calling that I have to like force that game down everyone's throats.
Yeah.
And
I'll
I
be here
will.
for the content.
I absolutely will. But besides older games that like, I don't know if they deserve like a re-release, but like, Karnov is really cool. Dan Kuga is really cool. Like, like it's a complete waste of money to remake those games. Don't get me wrong, right? But those are games where like I wish the greater FGC as a whole could experience at least once. But
I've
besides
never
that,
heard of those. So yeah, that's new to me too. So
yeah, well, they're both really messed up games in their own way.
Okay.
Dan Kuga specifically, I love that game just because of a guy called Gonzalez. He has like the best command grab of all time. He literally throws you out of Earth, and
Oh,
then you
wow.
fall and like in orbit, burn up on reentry, and then hit the ground.
Gotcha.
It's a cool move. I think like obviously like Darkstalkers is the one everyone would want. It's hard though because like if you make Darkstalkers the game it should be, then you know Capcom would be making it, and they're competing against themselves.
Yeah.
Because like
Very true.
this is a one-on-one fighter, and we're making it in a market where we already have a one-on-one fighter.
hmm
So like, what's the incentive to make a new Darkstalkers, right? Like I know everyone wants it, but like it's in a weird spot. Because like even in like the Street Fighter 4 days, at least Marvel and Street Fighter 4 were like they were both fighting games, but they're like different subgenres of fighting games. They didn't necessarily step on each other's toes, right? So obviously Darkstalkers are basically like I would love another Primal Rage too, but like Darkstalkers I feel is like the big one everyone wants, but it's also in a weird way the hardest to get. Because a Darkstalkers means Capcom's betting against Street Fighter, and that doesn't work. Like from a corporate perspective, right?
Yeah, for sure. So is there like a pie in the sky, like dream fighting game that you would look out for?
Well, okay, specifically like VF is it, but
Yeah.
going by the rumor mill, and it's not a rumor because this the leaker is they're right, it's happening, right? So VF is it, but since that's sort of confirmed now, besides Virtua Fighter, let me think about that for a second. Like I like besides like if we're talking like an all new game, I'm always so mad ever since like I remember playing the first Overwatch beta, and they had like that fake arcade in the one stage, right? And they have this game called Fighters of the Storm. And like you can see like Garrosh versus like Kerrigan and stuff. And I'm like, why is that not a game?
Right.
You know?
Right.
And like I just like sit there resenting it. Like, why is it not a game?
Yeah, I shoot that
And
arcade
like
every time. Like you're not a thing.
that's like obviously Blizzard Star is not what it used to be in recent years, right?
hmm
But like I feel like that was like a safe bet as like a all-star fighter if there ever was gonna be one. Because you know, the Blizzard Star, unless like accepting recent years, has always been really big. Like I would pay top dollar to have like Thrall bashing Jimmy Raynor's head. You know?
Gotcha. Yeah. Like
So that was always one. Even though like I don't even know what form it would take, but I always like there are so many Warhammer 40K games. There are so many. How is there not a fighting game?
that's true.
You know, like
They're invading all the genres, so like I would think
like
that would be on the
there's a
docket somewhere.
Warhammer game of every genre but fighting game.
Yep.
So like I don't even know what a Warhammer 40K fighting game would be, to be honest with you. But like I would play one, that's for sure, right?
Yeah.
So
Fi-
like you know
Fighters of the
I love the
Storm.
universe, love the factions, like Warhammer's cool. So like how is like one of these 400 developers, because like apparently it only costs you $20 to get the Warhammer license, going by like the amount of shovelware I see on Steam, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So like how is one of these people not done a fighting game yet?
Yeah. Very true. Yeah. Maybe we'll see someone take that up. Yeah. I was gonna say like Fighters of the Storm. Like man, like I forgot that was a thing. You know, because you don't even see that stage in Overwatch anymore. I guess. Well, maybe there's another stage where it exists. But yeah, that was definitely a very cool thing to see.
Yeah, like I grew up on like I was so into StarCraft in the late 90s, right? You know, like all the voices are like ingrained in my head, like the Vulture, you know, like, yeah, what do you want? Oh, I read you, sir. You know, like
Yep.
all that stuff's forever a part of my psyche.
Yeah. And yeah, just combining the worlds of StarCraft and Warcraft. I know they did it with Heroes of the Storm, but like that, I think that would be so cool to see it in a fighter.
And Diablo too, naturally, right? Like so.
Oh, right.
But yeah, I don't know. I've never just seen that back when like it was the beta for Overwatch or whatever. I'm just like, why not that game instead of this one? You know, like.
Yeah. What? Hey, so I do want to be respectful of your time. There are 3 more questions if you're willing, but if like, hey, like you've hit a wall.
I'm done work for the day, so I can go as long as you need me.
Okay, cool. We'll do these last 3 questions because again, we really appreciate you being here, and you know I do want you to maybe get some sleep at some point. But so the next question comes from Ham Jam again. He says, "Is there a type of fighting game content that you would like to make or see made by someone else, but haven't, either like due to time, technical challenges, or maybe you're uncertain of how it'll appeal or anything else?
That's a very good question. Because like I've certainly made like a lot of different styles of video over the years, like lots of lore videos. Obviously combos, guides, tech, blah blah blah, like news. There's one idea I've always had, but I feel like I'll be the first to admit it. Like editing is not my strong point. Like I am coasted by the fact that I can talk pretty decently. If I couldn't talk good, then I need to be a better editor, right? Like, and I don't mean it necessarily in this format, but like one thing I always want to do, because there's a lot of fighting game movies, like a lot, and some of them are really weird. And I always want to do like obviously it would be limited in the end series, covering like maybe like 30 movies, anime and live action. But I always want to like review the fighting game movies. I would need like a setup, because like I'd have to be on camera for a lot of it. I'm not opposed to being on camera, but it certainly won't work in my very small, crowded apartment. Like I need a setup, a studio, better camera, like a real camera, not just my crappy webcam. And then just like do movie reviews, like because like those movies are weird, like the Tekken movie, like the Tekken. Oh my god, the live like if you've never seen it, like I don't want to rob you. It's a weird one. Let's put it that way. And like some of those movies are weirdly good. Like the Dead or Alive movie is weirdly good. Like it is it's not like a quote unquote good movie. Like it would get a good Rotten Tomatoes score, but like trust me, you will enjoy your time watching that movie. The choreography is good. The jokes are funny. The costuming is actually amazing. It's like the best like 1-to-1 from the game to a movie costuming in there. And like they got people like Robin's show is Hayabusa, I believe, or is he Hayate? I can't remember. But Robin's show, right? He was Liu Kang in the Mortal Kombat movie.
Okay.
They got Kevin Nash playing Bass. He's the inspiration for the character. He is the inspiration for that character, and they got the actual human who's the inspiration for the character to play the character.
Oh, that's
like
awesome.
How crazy is that? So like, I'm just saying that fighting game movies are like both good and bad, but there's a lot to talk about, and I wish I could do it justice. But like with my current setup, my current equipment, like it just wouldn't work so good. Like I would need to like have like an actual like studio to work out of to do it right. But those movies, like watch those movies. They're all right, except for the ones that are really bad. But still watch those too.
Well, good. I have some movies to view. If there's any others, like definitely like let us know, because I would I'd like to make it like a
like
little
some are
list of
just legit
movies.
good. Like obviously Mortal Kombat 1 is just a legitimately good film, straight up.
Yep.
Like the
for sure.
CG doesn't hold maybe with Reptile, but other than that, like great execution on the plot, great character. Like Lyndon Ashby as Johnny Cage is like so fucking good.
Yep.
The soundtrack's like maybe the like in contestation for best movie soundtrack of all time, I would say. And stuff like a lot of the Street Fighter animated movies, especially the first one's really good. Like there is good movies to watch, and some of the ones that are bad are still good, and some of the ones that are bad are just bad.
Hey, yeah, we all have our guilty cult classics that we like to go through anyway. So yeah, I'm sure if you're into fighting games, those are all worth a watch. So that's good.
Absolutely. But yeah, so if I could do anything that I'm not doing right now, like those would be the case. But just maybe one day, but I just don't got like the resources for it at the moment.
Okay, cool. Well, that's something to look forward to from you. So hopefully you do get that chance. All right. Well, this next question comes from Lost Faith Halo. He says, "Hey, I've been playing Street Fighter for over 300 hours. However, for most of those hours, I just felt really uncertain about playing ranked. And for the longest time, I just sat in lab and I did combos with different characters instead of playing. Now that I've finally gotten over that and started running ranked every day, I just feel like I've wasted a lot of my time. Have you ever experienced this, and do you have any advice for feeling this way?"
That's a weird one. I noticed a lot of people run into that, like where there's like a mental barrier when it comes to ranked specifically, like regardless of the game.
Yep.
Now the gentleman said they already got over it, so that's good. But one piece of advice I've given, and like I've seen it actually work when it comes to like people having that mental barrier with ranked. And this is more, I guess, it's on console because it's easier. But like, just make a second account, and then that way that second account isn't quote unquote you, And then all of a sudden, because it's not your account, a lot of people find the stress just melts away. They're really hung up on whatever their given online persona is and seeing the numbers by that name. But if you make a second name, a second account, then a lot of that just goes away. But now, as far as like wasting time, dude, wasted so many hours of my life. Are you crazy? Like, yeah, I definitely get that feeling, right? But it's one of those deals where like you can look at something objectively in the future and realize it was a waste of time. But as long as you didn't regret it in the moment, then it wasn't that bad time wasted. Like even stuff like, oh, you're doing practicing combos, you're doing drills, or doing like whatever. Like as long as like, even in just practicing combos, like there is a tangible benefit to it, even if it's not quote unquote the best use of your time or not too exhilarating in the moment. Like when I do combo drills and stuff, like I blast my music playlist and all kinds of stuff, and I just kind of zone out, right? But yeah, you'll always find stuff for like, yeah, it's gonna happen, like where you feel like something wasn't the best use of your time. That's just kind of life, right? Because a lot of the fighting game journey is what you put forward. Like I'm playing Final Fantasy VII right now, right? Rebirth. And like you play, and it's a straight line. You're always told where to go. You always know what the right thing to do is, right? Fighting games is a personal journey in a lot of ways. That's why so many people are drawn to the genre, because it's personal growth. Like you're not just A to B to C in a single player game, or even a lot of multiplayer games. You just drop in, shoot dude in the head, move on. So what seems like it wasn't a big deal at the time, or maybe in a waste time, can secretly be like a very valuable thing. Like just to give just an example, my friend, he'll go on name for now. This is like the Street Fighter 4 days specifically. I remember he was like so hung up on trying to learn Gen. Because Gen's the hardest character, and I'm the best at fighting games, so I got to master him, right?
Okay.
And like that's kind of his logic. He's that kind of guy, right?
Gotcha.
And I remember one specific one weekend. He's like he burned a whole Sunday just practicing Gen combos. And he's like I wasted my effing day, blah blah blah. And then I remember like a week later we play, and like he's doing all these like crazy Gen one frame links and all this shit. And like I cannot do these combos, like straight up, I cannot. And he looked at it and he viewed it as he wasted his time doing this, and like there was tangible results, but he couldn't see it.
Yep.
And sometimes that's how it's going to be, because we all have our blinders on one way or another. So as long as it was time enjoyed, it was never time wasted. That's what I'll say.
No, that's a beautiful way to put it. Because I think when it comes to time in general, it's very subjective from person to person. And then if you're worried about the outside perspective of like what someone else is maybe judging you about your time spent, like I don't think that ever matters, right? Because like you said, like as long as you don't regret it, like it's good. If anything, even like when it comes to hours played in fighting games, if there's anything that I want to do more is be able to put more hours in. I want to have more hours playing these games. So
yeah, that's the thing. Some people they look at like hours invested versus if I don't have this result by the hours invested, then like I'm objectively a failure, right? And that's absolutely the worst way to look at it. Like, let me tell you, I've put in like over 1,000 hours in the games I'm shit at, but I had fun along the way, and that's what matters.
Yeah, I'm not competing at a pro level at anything anymore. So yeah, so it's right now it's all for fun, and yeah. All right, I'm with you with that. Let me get to this last question from AVHD. He says, and this kind of brings it kind of full circle, because this is what we're talking about, like your early days of content. He said, would you consider For Honor to be a fighting game? Or does it seem to be a different game? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, because like that's why I started specifically, right? Admittedly, it was the right time, right place when I was like looking to get serious on YouTube, right? But I looked at it like there's a lot of games where like you can apply fighting game logic to it. Like specifically For Honor. Like I remember one of my first videos. Here, actually, I can probably check here. It wouldn't be too long into. Okay, so let's see. My first ever For Honor video was a Kensei guide, and like a week after that, there you go. I did a Valkyrie dodge counter option select video because I found a way to OS her dodge parry. Right?
Gotcha.
And like, if you can option select something, hey, you're kind of like a fighting game.
Yeah, that's a very fighting game. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very fighting game. And I went on to know people on the For Honor team. And they're like, wow. Like they talk about some of the early videos, like, oh, we didn't even think of that. Like, they had like the fighting game stuff in mind. Like, I'll tell you right now, without blowing anyone's names up here, there's people on that For Honor team that are deadly serious about fighting games. So like that stuff, that thought process definitely went in there back in the day.
Okay.
But yeah, so yeah, For Honor for sure, absolutely. That's why I was so attracted to the game early on. The only thing I can knock the game, and like, no, it's not the game's fault. Like console and PC played on different frame rates, so it was like kind of a different experience.
Gotcha.
PC you could play 60, and PS4 at the time was locked to 30 FPS.
Were they crossplay?
No.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I was thinking is at 30 FPS, it's literally harder to block at 30 FPS.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Like it's only a few milliseconds, but that game milliseconds is life and death, right?
Yeah, I only played on PC, so yeah, I did not realize that.
Yeah, I was playing on console, so that's why that was a very big deal to me.
Yeah, and again, very fighting game specific, right? Just like, hey, like all of those frames matter when you're trying to react to stuff. So
yeah, I believe I might have changed how they changed the game, because I'm looking at the one video I have now. Fastest attacks for all classes, quote, frame data. And because I couldn't do frame data because PC and console ran at different frames, I ran everything by milliseconds comparatively.
Gotcha.
And then down the road, that's how they would present the game, is how many milliseconds everything is. So I think I had some effect on the game development that way.
Well, that's really cool that you were able to even meet those devs or people on the team and talk to them and help shape that. I think your input in all of this stuff is super valuable. And again, I want to be 100% like, hey, like we really thank you for your time being here. I know that you routinely talk about like not getting a whole lot of sleep. So do you find that there's like lulls for you where you will be able to kind of get some sleep, or is now just not the time with all these fighting games kind of being so great and out there?
Well, it's one of those things because like it's one of those, like any job, right? Like if there's a lot of work, I get stressed. And because YouTube, you're only as good as your last video. If there's not enough work, I get stressed. So like, there's no winning. Like that's
Gotcha.
kind of how it is. Like, I'll say this, yeah. Like sleep's always been a problem for me. It's a lifelong issue. But I also worked midnights for 10 consecutive years.
Okay.
So I can work without sleep. Like,
got it.
Like. If anyone listening here, don't. That's a skill. Don't learn it. Don't learn it. Like it's a good skill, quote unquote, but it's not a skill that leave you happy with life. So I can go for like 2 days straight, no problem, without any sleep. But don't learn that skill. It's not a good skill to know. Get your sleep when you can get it.
Yeah.
But right now, right now we're in a bit of a hot period, right? We just had 3 patches in 3 days, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We had the Street Fighter patch, then we had the Mortal Kombat patch, then we had the Tekken patch, and obviously Street Fighter also launched with Ed. So stuff's like popping in that way. In the very near future, what do we even have? Like the Red Bull Kumite is coming up, and then things will slow down a little bit after that. Like we have Eddie for Tekken, we have Akuma for Street Fighter, but we don't have hard dates for those characters just yet. Multiverse is returning in May, so that's not just yet. Besides Janet Cage coming out at the end of the month, things are a little like my goal right now is after Red Bull Kumite in New York. My goal is to play as much Dragon's Dogma as I can while I still can.
Yep. Gotcha.
That's what I try to do. When things are slower, I catch up on the backlog.
Yeah.
And Dragon's Dogma 1, I bought that game on 3 different systems. I love that game to death. So playing as much Dragon's Dogma 2 when that comes out is like my priority number 1.
Cool. Well, I hope you get either one, more sleep or more time to play that game. Again, thank you so much for being here. I mean, obviously everybody should follow you on Twitter and subscribe to you on YouTube if they haven't already. Like, I don't know who hasn't. But is there anything else that you want to mention as far as things that you're doing, things that we should be aware of, anything you want to promote?
Well, watch the videos, I guess. That's always nice. I will use this time, like, pay attention to Virtua Fighter when it happens. It's a fucking good game.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll be there for that.
I'm not, like, I will shill. I'm like I said, I'm not lying. I will become unbearable about this, right? Like, the biggest thing I can say is, like, hey, every major change in Tekken 8 is to make it play more like Virtua Fighter. Like, it's not a coincidence, folks. It's not a coincidence. So look forward to that when it happens. But yeah, besides that, man, like just play fighting games, have fun. It's a cool genre. You're not gonna find any other genre at all. Or you're gonna find people like me or people like Justin Wong or like any of us old timers. How many people like, oh man, I played Wolfenstein back when it came out. That game was so sick, and they consistently only played FPSs ever since then to this day. Yeah. You're not gonna find that. Like, you play the odd FPS, sure, but like, oh, I played Wolfenstein 2, and then I've only been about FPS for the rest of my life. That doesn't exist. Nope. Like, you are not going to find that in any other genre. Like, we're very unique in that way. Like, we create lifers in a way no other genre can.
Yeah.
Like, that's why, like, you look at like the Capcom Cup, right? You'll have an 18-year-old up against a 39-year-old, and it's just a normal day. Yeah. It's just a normal day in the FGC. And when you fast forward us 10 years from now, that 18-year-old will be 29 or 28, and that 39-year-old will be 49 because they're not going to stop.
Yeah. That's
like, I'm 40 right now. When I'm 50, I'm still going to be here. I ain't going anywhere. Like, this is the most beautiful genre of game you can find because it leads to situations like this. We're the lifers for a reason.
Yeah, I was that young kid playing Wolfenstein 2 and growing up on Doom and playing shooters all my life. That's where I competed. But I mean, there's a reason why I didn't stay with it. I mean, there's a reason why here.
Yeah, like, I played Hell Wolfenstein. I played Hell Doom. Yeah. I played competitive Quake 2. I played competitive Quake 3. I was in all sorts of money match clan wars in the tribes days. Like I was there, but I didn't stick with it.
Yep.
Like the last shooter I played mildly seriously was COD 4. That was it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why I'm here with the FGC, and it's a huge part to people like you bring it to the community. But yeah, Hot Soup, I'm going to turn it over to you.
No, I was just going to say I want to be a little bit selfish here and ask a question. I was hoping someone else would ask. You have such an iconic intro to your videos. Is there a story behind that?
No.
Okay.
You can watch some of the older videos and years ago, and it'll just be like, "Hello and welcome. This is Rooflemonger," and then we go into it, right? And it just eventually kind of just start getting in hello and welcome, right? Like it just sort of evolved, and people like it. Like for every comment I'll get, someone's like, "Oh, I hate your intro," blah blah blah. There's 100 positive comments, so there's literally no rhyme or reason to it. It just kind of became the thing.
Can you say hello and welcome FightRise so we can use it as a soundbite? Would you be comfortable with that?
Sure. Hello and welcome. This is FightRise.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. Hello and welcome. This is FightRise.
That's so awesome. Thank you so much for being a good sport doing that.
The one thing I'll say, because one thing besides the intro, people, if I get any amount of praise, is usually the manner and the cadence of my speech. And this is one of those things where you never know how life prepares you for your actual thing you're going to do in life. Before this, I was emergency police medical fire dispatch, right? And they sold the company and they fired all of us, which fucking sucked. But my cadence, my manner of speech, all that I learned on that job. Because life or death calls were an everyday thing. So you got to speak clear. You got to speak, quick and clear and concise. And little did I know that job is what prepared me for YouTube.
That's very cool.
Life works in weird. I tell people, I got multiple degrees, and I'm doing YouTube. I never planned for this. There's a good chance you will fall backwards into what you actually are going to do for the rest of your life. Because I'm a good example of it.
That's great. And thank you for being here and sharing all of that advice and the stories with us. We really appreciate it. Definitely, people check out. I'm sure everyone here is already looking at your YouTube, subscribe to your YouTube channel. But please do if you're not. Rooflemonger, definitely one of the best out there in the fighting game space. But again, thank you again. Thank you for everyone who joined us and asked those questions. We'll get a recording up on YouTube, I think, fairly soon. So I appreciate everyone's time, especially your time, Rooflemonger. Thank you for joining us.
All right, well, thank you very much for having me.